All right, let's talk about a tool that's really been stirring things up in the 3D space, Meshy AI. We're going to do a full breakdown, what it is, what it's great at, and yeah, where it kind of falls flat. Let's just jump right in.
You know this feeling. If you do any kind of 3D work, you have been here. It's that absolute dread of the blank canvas, that blinking cursor in an empty world, and the clock is just ticking. It's that moment where you have all the potential in the world, and all the panic.
And that is exactly the moment a tool like Meshy AI is built for. It's trying to solve that blank canvas problem. See, it's not just about spitting out a model, it's about getting you started, getting something, anything, into your workflow that you can actually use, and doing it fast.
So, to really get our heads around it, here's how we'll tackle this. First, we'll define what Meshy really is. Then, we'll dive into its main tools. After that, we'll get into the real talk, the good and the bad. Then, some practical tips. And we'll wrap it all up with the final verdict on who this thing is actually for.
Okay, first up, what even is Meshy AI? The most important thing to get right away is that it wants to be more than just a 3D model generator. The key phrase here is pipeline helper.
So what does that actually mean? Well, it means the whole thing lives on the web. It takes you from a text prompt or an image all the way to a 3D model. But then it also helps with those messy middle steps, like AI texturing, cleaning up the 3D mesh itself, and even letting you preview simple rigs and animations. The whole point is to get you something you can actually export and start working with.
So let's pop the hood and see how this all works. Section 2. Let's get into the core toolkit, the features you'll actually be using. When you're working in Meshy, your process is probably going to look a lot like this. Step 1, you generate the model. Step 2, you remesh it to clean up the geometry. And trust me, this is a step you don't want to skip. Then, step 3, you use the AI to throw some textures on it. Following this order just seems to work best. The star of the show, of course, is text to 3D. It's awesome for just getting ideas out of your head, making quick placeholders for a game, or just seeing what a few different styles might look like. But it's not magic. It definitely wobbles with thin stuff like straps or antennas, and it really struggles with perfect symmetry on hard surfaces, and don't even get me started on tiny details like fingers or teeth.
And it's not just about text. The Image to 3D tool is another huge part of the kit. And you know what? It's surprisingly good, especially if you're not aiming for perfect realism. If you feed it some stylized concept art of a character or a big chunky prop, it does a pretty great job of catching the overall vibe. Now, let's talk about what might just be the hidden gem in the whole platform, AI texturing. You can just type a prompt and get a bunch of different texture ideas. The pro move here is to find one that's kind of close to what you want, export it, and then use it as a starting point, a base layer to paint over in your main software. It's a massive time saver. And that brings us to the Smart Remesh tool. Honestly, you can think of this as the please don't crash my computer button. The raw models that AI spits out can be a total mess, super dense and chaotic. This tool cleans up that mess and lets you dial in the polygon count so the model's actually something you can edit without your software grinding to a halt. Okay, let's get real for a minute. No tool is perfect, right? So for section 3, let's take a good, honest look at where Meshy is amazing and where it's, well, a little frustrating. This really breaks it down. So where does it shine? Speed. The speed from just an idea to having a model is hands down its biggest win. And having everything in one place is fantastic for just banging out prototypes. Where does it frustrate? Well, the topology, the underlying geometry, is almost never ready for professional work like animation. Getting a consistent style across a bunch of different models is tough, and getting precise, hard surface shapes can really be a roll of the dice.
So, knowing all that, how do you actually make this tool work for you? That's what Section 4 is all about, practical tips and the stuff you need to know.
If you want good results, you have to learn how to talk to the AI. First, be specific. Don't just say a sword, say a weathered steel long sword with a leather-wrapped hilt. Second, be explicit about the style. Literally type stylized or photorealistic. Third, use reference images whenever you can. It helps anchor the AI. And maybe most important, be patient. Always budget some AI cleanup time into your project.
Look, a great model is useless if you can't get it out of the program properly. Meshy supports all the standard formats you'd expect. The key thing here, though, is to always, and I mean always, do a quick sanity check. The second you export, open that file in Blender or whatever you use and just check it. Is the scale right? Are the textures linked up? You'll save yourself a lot of headaches.
So how do you pay for all this? It's a credit-based system. The free tier is awesome for just playing around and seeing if you like it, but it's pretty limited. If you're going to use this for actual work, you'll probably need to jump on a paid plan to get more credits, get your models generated faster, and, this is the big one, to keep your work private.
And please, please, please do not skip the fine print on licensing. This stuff is super important. On the free plan, your creations are licensed under Creative Commons, meaning other people can use them as long as they credit you. If you share it to their community page, it's basically public domain. The only way to truly own your work and keep it private is with a paid plan. Always double-check their latest terms, because this stuff can change.
Okay, let's land this plane. We've gone through the good, the bad, and the practical. So the final verdict? Who is Meshy AI really for?
If there is one single thing you take away from all this, it's this. Meshy is an accelerator. It makes you faster. It is not, and I repeat, not a replacement for actual 3D skills. You still need to know what you're doing to guide it, to clean up its mistakes, and to turn its output into something truly great.
So Meshy is at its absolute best when you treat it like a crazy fast concepting machine, or as a way to accelerate your prototyping, or maybe best of all, as a generator for base meshes that you fully intend to take somewhere else for proper sculpting and refinement.
Where's it going to let you down? Well, you'll be pretty disappointed if you're expecting perfect geometry that's ready to animate, or if you need super strict mechanical precision for like an engine part. And it's definitely not going to give you a whole set of perfectly consistent assets on the first try without a lot of effort from you.
But here's the crucial point. At the end of the day, what Meshy does is it takes that terrifying blank canvas moment and moves it so much closer to that feeling of, okay, we've got something to work with now. And sometimes that's everything. That's the difference between a project that gets off the ground and one that never starts.
Which really leaves us with this one big question to chew on, doesn't it? Are tools like this becoming our ultimate creative partner? Or are they more like a really, really fast intern? You know, one who's super enthusiastic and means well, but still needs a ton of supervision. I guess that's something we're all going to be figuring out together. Thanks for watching.